Okay, so have you ever pictured yourself working on like a beautiful Mediterranean island?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Who hasn't?
Right. Specifically Malta.
The
Beautiful,
There's
historic,
beaches.
and they have a booming tourism and hospitality industry, so lots of opportunity there.
I've heard that, yeah.
But there's this thing, it's called the Skills Pass, and you need that to work in their tourism sector.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
that's what we're going to deep dive into today. We've got the official document right here.
Perfect.
And yeah, so you're thinking about working in Malta and tourism. We're going to tell you all about what the Skills Pass is all about and what you need to know to get it.
Yeah, let's break it down.
So first off, the Skills Pass. It's not just like a one-time thing you have to do.
Oh, Liz.
It's a two-phase process.
Okay.
So you've got online training and assessment. That's the first phase.
Okay.
And then you've got an online interview. That's the second phase.
So 2 parts to it. Got it.
So yeah, let's dive into phase one.
Sounds good.
Online training and assessment.
Right.
So you register online, and then you buy the modules for the occupation that you want to work in.
Okay.
And then you progress through the courses and assessments.
Gotcha. So does that mean you have to pay for those?
We'll get into the money stuff a little later, but yes.
Okay, fair enough.
But I thought it was interesting that they use the Coursera API.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So if anybody's ever done any online courses, the interface might look kind of familiar.
Yeah, makes sense. Streamlined and familiar for people.
And no matter what occupation you pick, there are some mandatory modules you got to do.
Makes sense.
So you've got your English proficiency test. Got to speak English, obviously.
Yeah, especially with tourists.
Then there's the basic customer care module.
Of course. The basics.
But then, and this is where I thought it got interesting,
Okay.
there's a basic Maltese tourism product course.
Oh, wow. So they're really emphasizing knowing a bit about the local area, huh?
And then there's a basic English for hospitality course.
So English, but specific to that industry. Interesting.
So even if your Maltese is pretty much non-existent going in, you can learn.
That's great.
So yeah, that's your mandatory stuff. Then you get to pick your occupation.
Right.
Now, I'm just going to run through some of these here.
Okay.
Luggage porter, receptionist, bar waiter, general attendant,
Pretty standard, yeah.
commis chef, commis de rang,
Okay.
and then they have this other category.
Okay, now I'm curious. What does that mean?
I know. That was the thing that really piqued my interest. Like, what are these other jobs?
Yeah, what falls under that umbrella?
Right.
Like, could you be super specific? Like, underwater basket weaving instructor for tourists, you know?
Uh-huh. Right. Like, is it that niche?
Exactly. Or, like falconry expert for historical tours, maybe?
Yeah. It really makes you think about how specialized some tourism jobs could be, especially in a place like Malta.
Definitely. I mean, they've got a unique history and culture, lots of potential there.
So once you've done your mandatory modules and picked your occupation,
Yeah, what's next?
we move on to phase two, the online interview.
Okay, and what's involved in that?
Well, this is where it changes, depending on if you need a visa to go to Malta or not.
Ah, so different procedures depending on where you're coming from.
If you need a visa, you go to your nearest VFS center for the interview.
Okay.
But if you're from a non-EU country that doesn't need a visa, you do your interview at the Institute of Tourism Studies, which is in Malta.
Interesting. So some people have to be physically in Malta for that part.
It seems like it, yeah. It really makes you think about what their visa process must be like.
Yeah, definitely something to research further, especially for those who might need a visa.
Okay, so let's say you've done all your online training, aced the interview,
Fingers crossed.
you get your skills pass,
All right. Victory.
and here's the big thing.
Yeah.
It's permanent. You don't have to keep renewing it or anything.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
So you're good to go to work in their tourism and hospitality sector.
So they're really serious about having qualified people in their industry then.
Seems like it. It seems like they're trying to raise the standard across the board.
Yeah, I can see that.
Now, this is where I thought it got even more interesting.
Oh,
The skills pass isn't just for new people coming to work in Malta.
wait, really?
By January 2026, everybody who works in tourism in Malta will need a skills pass.
Everybody. Wow, that's ambitious.
So they're rolling it out in phases.
Makes sense. You can't just suddenly require it from everyone.
Right. So non-EU folks who need permits, they need it first.
Makes sense. Those are the people coming in specifically to work in tourism.
Then in January 2025, anybody who's already working there, if they need to renew their work permit, they got to get the skills pass.
Okay.
And then by January 2026, everyone needs it, no matter what.
Wow, that's a pretty big change for their industry.
It really is. And it makes you wonder, like, what's the thinking behind that?
Yeah. Is it about raising standards? Or maybe making the industry more competitive?
I mean, it definitely makes you think about what the impact's going to be.
Yeah, definitely a lot to unpack there.
Okay, so let's talk money. How much does this thing cost?
Right, the all-important question.
So it depends on your situation. If you live outside the EU and you're going to Malta specifically to work in tourism, it's 475.
Okay.
But if you're already living in Malta but haven't been there for a full year yet, it's a bit cheaper.
Oh, interesting. How much cheaper?
455.
Huh. So it's cheaper if you're already there. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, and the document doesn't say why.
That's a good point. You'd think it'd be the other way around.
Right, you'd think it'd be cheaper to attract people from outside.
Maybe it has something to do with, like, processing fees or something? I don't know.
It's a mystery. But there are some categories where it's free.
Oh, really? Like what?
Internship students, full-time students at schools in Malta.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And get this, EU and Maltese workers.
Hold on. So, if you're Maltese or from the EU, you don't have to pay.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I wonder if there's any way to, like, strategically use that loophole, you know?
Maybe something to think about.
Definitely.
Okay, so another thing tied to this skills pass is your visa.
Right. Makes sense. It's all connected.
If you get the skills pass and you're not from the EU, you get a 1-year residence and a work permit to start with.
Okay, so 1 year to prove yourself, basically.
But you can renew it for 2 years if you meet certain criteria.
2 years. Okay, that's pretty good. What do you have to do?
First, you got to reach at least the orange level on your skills pass.
Orange level.
It's MQF level 2 on the Maltese qualification framework. So basically, you have to level up.
MQF, so like a ranking system for qualifications.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does MQF level 2 actually mean? Like, what kind of skills are we talking about?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, it's probably different depending on your job, right?
True, but it's definitely something to look into more.
Yeah, definitely.
So get the skills pass, level up, then you can stay longer. Got it.
And you got to be employed by an MTA licensed operator in tourism or hospitality.
Right, so they're making sure you're actually working in the industry.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've gone over the 2 phases of the skills pass, how much it costs, what it means for your visa.
Yeah, a lot of ground covered already.
And we've talked about how they're making it mandatory for everyone in the industry eventually.
A big shakeup for sure.
So anything else we need to know about how this whole process works?
Yeah, actually, there are a few details about the rules and the support they offer.
Oh, okay, good. Lay it on me.
So first off, all payments for the skills pass have to be made with a credit card.
Okay, so just have that ready.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Now, remember those assessments we talked about?
Yeah.
If you don't pass one, you get 1 free resit.
Okay, 1 freebie.
But after that,
You got to pay.
yep, if you need more resits, yeah, pay for them.
And are there limits on that? Like,
Yeah.
can you just keep retaking it until you pass?
Not quite.
Oh,
If you fail a resit that you paid for, then there's a 3-month lockdown.
a lockdown.
Yeah, you can't try again for 3 months.
Okay, so there's some strategy involved here.
Definitely got to prepare and make those attempts count.
What about just in general? How long do you have to complete the whole phase 1?
You've got 42 days.
42 days for everything.
Yep, all the mandatory modules, the courses for your job, and all the assessments.
Okay, that's not a ton of time.
Well, if you need more time, you can buy extensions.
Okay.
So that gives you a bit more breathing room.
It really is like a game, isn't it?
Kinda, yeah.
Time limits, resets, got to plan it out, got to pay for extra stuff if you need it.
Exactly. And speaking of needing help, there is live chat support.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So if you get stuck or have any questions or just need some reassurance, you can chat with the real person.
That's nice because I imagine it could feel a little overwhelming, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Especially since it's all online.
Right. Okay, so before we move on, can we just go back to that thing about everyone needing a skills pass by 2026?
Sure.
How does that actually work? Like, how are they rolling that out?
So it's a phased approach. First, they're focusing on non-EU workers who are coming to Malta to work in tourism.
Right. Makes sense.
Then, starting in January 2025, anyone who's already working there but needs to renew their permit will also need to get the skills pass.
Okay.
And then by January 2026, it's mandatory for absolutely everyone working in tourism and hospitality, no matter what.
Wow. That's a big undertaking.
It is, yeah, a massive skills upgrade for the whole industry.
It makes you think about what the long-term effects are going to be.
Yeah,
Could
definitely.
be really good, raising standards, improving the quality of tourism in Malta.
Exactly. Attracting more visitors, boosting their reputation.
But could there also be some downsides?
Potentially.
Like, what about those smaller family-run businesses?
Ah,
It could be hard for them to keep up, with the cost of training everyone.
that's true.
Maybe some of them will even have to close.
It's possible, yeah.
It's really interesting to think about how this one policy could change so much.
Yeah.
Oh, and speaking of interesting things, this document has a bunch of extra links and resources.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
So there's info about different registration categories, frequently asked questions, stuff about the Skills Pass launch.
Cool. Lots of extra info.
And then there's this link to a page about something called block cert certificates.
Block cert certificates. What's that?
I don't know.
It doesn't say.
Not really, no.
Curious.
I mean, maybe it's how they verify your Skills Pass,
Could be.
so employers can make sure it's legit.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or maybe it's a way to store your credentials digitally.
Like a secure online record.
Exactly.
Interesting.
It's definitely something to look into.
Totally. I'm adding it to my list.
See, this is why we do these deep dives.
I know, right?
Start with one thing, and then bam, all these other interesting things pop up.
It's like a rabbit hole of information.
Exactly, and it's so fascinating.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot with this Skills Pass.
Yeah, we have.
2 phases, fees, visa stuff, support.
Oh, yeah, and those mysterious block cert certificates.
Right, right.
And how they're making this Skills Pass mandatory for everyone eventually.
A big change for the industry.
So, to wrap this up, what are the key takeaways here?
Well, I think the biggest one is that the Skills Pass is more than just a hoop to jump through.
Okay, yeah.
It's really a pathway, you know,
A pathway to what?
to a career in Malta's tourism industry and to a better experience for everyone involved, workers and tourists alike.
That's a good point.
Malta's serious about raising the bar, and this Skills Pass is how they're doing it.
So for our listeners out there, if you're thinking about working in Malta,
Yeah, definitely do your research.
this deep dive is a good starting point.
Absolutely. Familiarize yourself with the process, the requirements, the fees.
And don't forget about those block cert certificates.
Right. Got to figure out what those are all about.
Exactly. And if you find out, let us know.
Yes, we'd love to hear from you.
Okay, well, I think that's about it for this deep dive.
Yeah, I think we covered it all.
Until next time, keep exploring.
And keep diving deep.
It really makes you think, if other countries are watching what Malta's doing.
Right. Like, is this going to catch on? Are we going to see skills passes popping up everywhere?
Could be. Everyone's always trying to improve their tourism industry.
Yeah, makes sense.
I wonder if there are any other countries that are already doing something similar.
It's a good question.
Yeah, maybe that's something we can look into for a future deep dive.
I like it. Add it to the list.
But for now, I think we've given our listeners a pretty good overview of Malta's Skills Pass.
Yeah, we covered a lot.
The 2-phase process, the fees, the visa stuff.
The support they offer, those block cert certificates.
Oh yeah, those are still a mystery.
So hopefully we'll solve that one someday.
And of course, we talked about how everyone's going to need this Skills Pass eventually.
Big changes ahead for Malta's tourism industry.
And throughout this whole deep dive, we really tried to encourage our listeners to think for themselves.
Right. It's not just about giving information. It's about sparking curiosity.
Exactly. We want people to take this information and go explore further, do their own research.
Find those hidden gems of knowledge.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with a final thought.
Okay, I'm listening.
Think about the big picture,
Okay.
How is this Skills Pass going to change the experience of visiting Malta?
That's a good question.
Will it make things more standardized, more predictable?
Maybe.
Or will it empower workers to provide even better, more personalized experiences?
Because they have more knowledge and skills.
Exactly.
It's really interesting to think about.
It is, and it's a question that doesn't have an easy answer.
Right. It's something that's going to unfold over time.
And we'll all be watching to see what happens.
Well, on that note,
Yeah.
we've reached the end of our deep dive.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Keep those curiosity fires burning, keep exploring, and we'll catch you in the next deep dive.
See ya.